Okay, so hopefully everybody can hear me. So welcome back to Learning Python, Standard Python Beginner's course. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dare, and I'm going to be your mentor for today. So we're going to continue off or not where we left off last camp. So before I even start, actually, let me say this. So for some reason, I wasn't able to find my slides presentation that I prepared for today's camp, but it's all right. I guess I'll cover it like this. I don't know where it is at all. But yeah, so I'll be able to cover it within just I guess this document. And yes, we're going to go through some things today. We're going to go through a try and accept. There's some new statements we're going to be learning. We're going to go through global and local variables. And we're also going to look at some more string methods, which are .count and .find. And then later, if we also have extra time, we can go back to that rock, paper, scissors program we built last camp, and we'll add some more things to that. We'll add on top of it. So maybe we'll add that win ratio stuff and all that other stuff I was talking about. So if you have any questions, hold on. If you have any questions throughout this entire thing, be sure to ask them and put them in chat, and I'll be sure to answer them. If you have any questions about the rock, paper, scissors program we built last camp, if you had issues with it, you can ask me questions about that as well, and I'll try to help you out. So with that being said, let's get started. So once again, it's going to be a little bit different, so bear with me, please, because I'm not working within my slides today, so I have to kind of show as I'm doing it. So first things first, .count and .find. These are both string methods. If we're familiar with methods, they basically help make our job easier. Method we might remember is .upper and .lower. What these methods did was transform basically whatever the user wrote into uppercase or lowercase, or not technically what the user wrote, just whatever string it was into lower or upper. And today we're going to be looking at .count and .find as well, just to keep expanding our knowledge on this. So this might not be useful to you right now, but it's just nice to, I guess, expand your knowledge on more methods so you know what you can use in case if you ever want to use something. So let's start with .count. So let me first of all move all of this. Let's start with .count. So .count, first of all, we know that with a method, we pass in the variable name or whatever first, and we pass in the dot, and then we pass in the name of the method. So in this case, it's count. And then we pass in our parentheses, and we pass our, of course, argument within there. So for .count, let's see. I think for .count, honestly, it's best if I show you how it works. So in a program, maybe I'm having a user create a username for whatever platform I have. It's possible that I don't want them to use some characters in their name, okay? Maybe I don't want them to use the asterisk symbol, or maybe I don't want them to use a hashtag, or maybe I just don't want some other things as well. I just want it to be purely only no special symbols, okay? So how could I go about doing this? I need to be able to count, or I need to be able to go look in and see if they have this thing existing within their program, right? And if it exist, I need it to be, I need them to get like an invalid entry. I need them to try again, right? So I need to say no special characters. So first of all, I'm just going to write print, caps lock on. I'm just going to write print, sorry, no special characters can be in your username. So first of all, I'm just going to write this because I know this is going to be somewhere within my if statement, because I know we're going to have to do this with an if statement because it's going to check, right? So sorry, no special characters can be in your username, okay? That's cool. Or actually, let's just be a little bit more specific now instead of just saying special characters. Sorry, you cannot put an asterisk. We're just going to ban asterisk. I'm not sure if that's spelled correctly. I'll check right now. Okay, yeah, that was not. Oh, I missed. Okay, yeah. Asterisk. Sorry, you cannot put an asterisk in your username, okay? So, but how do we actually go about now to actually check to see if they have an asterisk, right? We need to go look into that string they created. So first, let's create the string. I'm just going to call this username. And let's set it equal to input. And I'm going to say create a username. Create a new username like that. So username equals input, create a new username. This is going to be saved as a string, of course, because we're using the input function. And yeah, so that looks good. Next, after that, now, after we have this, let me think. I guess we'll just create our if statement now. So I think I'm just going to create it. I'm going to show you what's going on afterwards. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to copy it in this print statement I created over here. What should I say? I'll just say like that, okay? So maybe I'll break it down now before I run it. So maybe I'm trying to think if I want to break it down or not. Maybe let's not break it down. Make sure this is all right and correct. Username, create new username, username.com. 0, all right, okay, let's try it. I'm gonna save the program and let's run it now. So create a new username. Okay, my username is going to be Bob Joe. So I get an error message, or not really an error message. I get, sorry, you cannot put an asterisk in your username. So that works successfully. Let's try it again this time, and let's not put an asterisk to make sure this actually works. I'm going to say the username is just Bob and Joe, like that. To enter Bob and Joe is a pretty cool username. I didn't put the space here, so I'll just go like that. But yeah, so let's break down what's happening. So .count, as you can see, it counts for something existing within a string. So the argument we pass in this case is what we want to count for specifically. So what I'm saying here is that it's going to count to see if there's any asterisks. And if it counts for anything more than 0 asterisks, so if there is an asterisk basically, it's going to print, sorry, you cannot put an asterisk in your username, and it's going to end the program. Otherwise, it's going to say, is a pretty, whatever username the user said is a pretty cool username. And from there, you could also get it to do whatever else, right? So this could be something like for sign up. And if I wanted, of course, I could add a lot more. I could also say, I could check for all the symbols. I could check for, what's it called? I could check for, and I could check for hashtag, I can check for a lot of other things, right? So that's pretty much what .count is doing here. Sorry, I'm not even looking at questions. So yeah, that's what .count is doing over here. It's counting to see if something exists, and that's the argument we passed. So in this case, it was counting for asterisks. So when I did the first example, when I put an asterisk in there, this clicked because it said the username is greater than 0, because there is one asterisk and one is greater than 0, right? Because there's one asterisk existing. If I put 3, of course it would still run, but if I put none, that's the only time when this wouldn't run. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense on how .count works, so we can count for something. I'm just going to change this one last time, and we're going to run this again to just make sure this is kind of clear. So we're going to do check for underscores this time. Instead of actually doing this now, let's just count so we can see it's actually counting. So I'm going to get it to print out the count. So in this case, it's just going to print the count of how many things are in a username. So we can also do this to avoid white spaces as well if we wanted. If we want to make sure we have no white spaces, we could do this. But let's just check for underscore since that's easier to actually see. So let's press F5 to run our code. Enter in a username. My username is going to be Adere. Oh, actually, I didn't even get it to print anything. I got it to print underscore. I did not actually create the program. Let me do that right now. So we're not printing underscore. We're printing user name.count of underscore. So I want you to try to take a guess of what this is going to return to us. I think you might know, but I want you to take a guess because that last example might have not made it too clear. So let's run this. I'm going to enter in a username now. I'm going to say is cool 1, 2, 3 like that. And let's see what it prints out to us. It prints out number 3, as you probably guessed, because we have 3 underscores within this string. So yeah, that is using .count, and we can do a lot of stuff with it, especially if we just want to check a string to make sure they're not using any characters we don't want, and just a lot of other things too. Maybe we can also check to see if they have too many white spaces. We can maybe if they're creating a password, if you're trying to create like a whole password like security thing, you can make it so they can't use the same character too many times. Just like a lot of things. Or I guess that wouldn't be too good of a password. You can use the character too many times, but yeah. So that's .count. Next, we're going to look at .find. So by the way, I didn't mention this, or I think I did, but just to make it clear, both of these methods are string methods. So since it's a string method, that means it won't be able to work on something else like a list maybe. So I'll just show you for .find. So let's do an example of .find. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to call this variable string. I'm going to say like, okay, maybe I have to randomize more. I'll go like this. So I think that's good. And I want it to print out the location of G. I want to see what the first or last character is, right? So maybe in an example program, I want to check if the user's, what the first letter of the user's thing is, or maybe even what the last letter is. Or I just want to check where a letter is located. It doesn't have to be for a sign of thing, of course, it can just be for anything. So yeah, I just want to check where a letter is located, or even to see if it exists, right? To see if it exists, we would use .count. In this case, it's just check where it is within the string. We would use .find. So I'm going to say string, because that's the name of our variable, string.find. And I want to see where A is located, right? So I can already imagine this. You can maybe use this in a game. So you get them to enter in a username. If you want to add like a random component to your game, without them knowing, you grab like a letter from their name and you use it as far as randomization. But yeah, so we're going to take string.find A, and we're going to print it out honestly, and we'll see our output. So we get printed out 0. And the reason we get printed out 0 is because remember how Python counts when we're counting like this in like a string or a list? It starts at 0. So A is at index 0, S is at 1, D is at 2, F is at 3, and yeah. So that's .find as well. So .count might seem more interesting now, but both of these are actually really interesting. You can do some cool things with them. So yeah, this is for finding an index of something. And if I'm going to try with a list, just to show you my point, this might make sense. You might think it would work, but let's just say if the list has A, B, C, and D within it. Let's say this is our list. If I save this and I run it like this, we see we get an error, and we get an error because once again, this is a string method. So even though you think this might make sense because we're saying look for this, and you think it would print out 0 as well, this is specifically a string method. So it's meant to only work on strings. And yeah, so hopefully those make sense. So I wasn't doing that because we're actually going to use .count and .find today. I was just doing that to expand our knowledge on some more methods that might be useful in the future if you're trying to build something. So yeah, those are that. So now I'm going to bring up a problem. I'm going to make a program that has an issue with it, and we're going to try to fix it. So first in my program, I'm just going to call the variable A. We're going to collect user input like this. I'm going to say type here. So I hope everybody's following along, even though I don't have the presentation today. I apologize once again for that. So yeah, any questions, you can put them in chat. So we create input. We're going to collect input now. And then now I'm also going to create an if-else statement. So actually, no, I'm not going to create an if-else statement. All I want to do is convert what the user said into an integer. So it's going to be int A. Or I'm going to say B equals int A plus 5. So they're going to type in an integer, and I'm going to add 5 to it, okay? So let's just try that right now. And actually, once we add 5, we'll print out B. So let's run this and see what type of output we get when we run this. So I do this, I'm going to type in an integer, and we see it works all fine, right? But what if instead of doing this now, I decide to type in hello? We get an error, right? So from the user standpoint in a program, when they get an error like this, at least not one that we created, if it's like not a print message or whatever we created, when they get an error like this, it can be pretty weird, right? Because you're not the programmer, you shouldn't have to see any of this, right? So how do we bypass this, and how do we maybe like handle errors when a user makes an error in the program, or when the user does something that will create an error in the program? How can we possibly handle this error so they don't have to see all of this that we see, right? How can we deal with this? Well, to go about doing this, it's called error handling, and specifically the statements we use to do this are try and except. So pretty much what these two statements do is that they try to do something, something that's possible that the user can give an error to. And if it does give an error, then it's going to just do except instead, because except is probably going to have what's not going to give them an error. So I'm just going to add a whole slide presentation on this, but I'm not sure where it went. But anyways, let's try fixing this program right now. I'm going to break down what's happening again. So I know that might have not been too clear since it's the first time you're just seeing it, but I'll fix this program right now using try and except, or sorry, not fix it necessarily. I'll just handle the error using try and except. And then after that, I'll break down what's going on. So we can have input type here. Now I'm going to try. In try, there should be this. And then in except, like this, I'll just say type and integer, like that. So let's see how this goes right now. So let's save this and let's run it. So type here now. I'm going to type in 5 again. Do I still have it printing? Actually, make sure I still have the program to print. Okay, yeah. I'll make it so that it still prints out B. So like that. There we go. Let's run this again now. So type here, I'm going to type in 5. We see that it works when I type in something the program wants. But now if I type in something that would usually throw in an error, let's see how that goes. So I'm going to type in hello again. And then now, instead of getting that error message that we would have once gotten, now we get type in an integer. So these are the keywords we use for specifically error handling. I know you can probably think you can get away with doing this with like an if-else statement, but try and accept is what's just using as like something you should try to use. It also has its own benefits as well, because a step makes it so that it does this, and it's not necessarily working like an if-else statement. So for an example, I'm going to try to give you like an example. It's going to kind of be like a story a bit of one time where this was useful for me. So I was using a module in Python. I was using something like a web scraper, okay? And with a web scraper, what you have to do is search to see basically if URLs are available, so you can go click on those URLs and grab information from there. I'm just going to keep it broad. So I needed to use a try and accept statement so it could check to see if it was at the last URL at that page. And if it was, then it would run accept, and then it would end the program instead, right? So it can be useful for a lot of things. So try just to see for errors, and it can be used for a lot of different things, honestly. I don't know if I explained that too well. Maybe we'll try to put it in our rock, paper, scissors program. But yeah, that's try to accept, and it's just for error handling. So maybe this example is honestly good enough. I'm not sure. Once again, if you have questions, you can put them in chat and I'll try to answer them. But yeah. So once again, what's happening with this program, if you just want me, I'm going to break it down one last time. So before we were just collecting a user input, and then we tried changing it to an integer, okay? But the problem with trying to change it to an integer is that if the user doesn't enter in a integer, if they enter in a string, if they enter in hello, and we try to convert it to an integer, we're going to get an error. And once again, like I said, with most programs we use, we don't have to see those red errors. We don't get to see any of those bad errors because the developers who made the program, they kind of like predicted that these are possible errors that somebody can make. So they have backups in case of that happens. So that's what we're doing here as well. It's called error handling. So we're handling those errors and we're basically replacing with something else. So now with try and accept, instead of just trying to do it immediately, instead of just running it and hoping that they enter in the right thing, what we're doing now is that we're actually just trying to check if it works. So it's trying it, it's going to run this, and it's going to say, oh, this throws an error. Okay, so we're just going to do accept then, because accept's like, okay, do this instead. So it's kind of like if kind of the other thing fails, you know? So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So a couple more things we got to do. We got to look at global and local variables. There's also a clip I saw on YouTube. It was a pretty cool trick that I might show you later as well. It's like I guess it would be a bonus. It's something you can do with while loops. It's like a keyword you can use with while loops as well to make them useful. But yeah, so yeah, I guess let's move on to global and local variables. So let's do this. So let me see how I want to go about doing this. I'll create a function. So we're going to define the function. We haven't messed with functions too much actually in this entire camp, but let's create a function right now. This function is going to be simple. It's going to be add 5. I think we've actually done this one before. And then we're going to pass a parameter. It's going to be x. Let's go down here like that. And then now let's do it. So it's just going to do x plus, we're just going to return x plus 5. So make sure I actually have that indented properly. Okay, yeah, that's good. And yeah, so let's just see if this actually works. Maybe I'll actually also say, maybe I'll just say print x plus 5. No, I'll just print out the function. So print and then I have to give a value to x. I'll just say x is 4. So let's make sure this works and we'll get 9 from this, hopefully. Yeah, we got 9. And yeah, so that looks good. But now what if I do this? What if later on in the program, maybe I'm trying to think about like this example. Now let's change up this example. I'm just going to call this, let me see. I need to create a variable in here. Okay, we're gonna have to do a little bit more complicated of an example to actually, I think, to make this a good example. So let's try this. Let's do this. I'm trying to think of a good example. So let's do, okay, fine, let's just go like this. Greeting. I'm gonna create a variable called hello. And it's gonna be equal to test. It's gonna be equal to the string nice to meet you, like that. So hello is equal to nice to meet you, and that is awesome. So next now, all it's going to do, this function is also going to actually print out hello. So it's going to print hello. And that's pretty much the end of the function. So let's run this function and make sure it works as intended. So if I run greeting like this, we don't need to pass a parameter. We go like this, we press run, and we get nice to meet you like that. So that's great. So now, what if later in my program now, after I've done that now, I want to print out hello, and then I want to go print out nice to meet you. All right, I'll print out nice. Let me know. I'll go like this. I'll go print out hello, which is that variable we created. And I also want to print out hello, the keyword itself. So maybe I'll rename this variable because this is a little bit weird saying hello plus hello. So I'll say greeting, which is going to be called greet. So now I'm going to say hello plus greet. So I want you guys to try to guess before I run this if you think this program is going to work or not. If you think when we run this, it's going to work. And yeah, so let's try running it now. Hopefully you took your guesses, and let's run it. So save, run, and we got an error. So let's actually look at this error. First of all, we see that we have one on line 7. That's because I have the greeting thing here. That's weird. I don't need this necessarily, so I'm just going to remove this. So maybe we never end up calling on our function, and we just want to use this down here. So let's run it again. So let's actually take a look at our error now. So the name greet is not defined. So greet is not even defined as a variable. But that's kind of weird, right? Didn't we just define it up here? We said greet is equal to the string nice to meet you. So what's going on here? Well, in Python, there exist things as global and local variables. So first, we're just going to talk about the words global and local. I'm pretty sure you're probably already familiar with them. But anyways, if something's global, you can kind of convert, you can kind of say it's universal almost. And by universal, it means it can be used anywhere, okay? Or when I say universal, I just basically mean anywhere. So if I say that slang is universal, that means it's like it's being used everywhere. It can be used everywhere, you know? And that also works in our program. So variable can be local or it can be global. So if a variable is global, that means it can be called anywhere in your program. It can be called in a while loop, a for loop, if statements, try and accept statements, functions, just everywhere. You can call on that variable and the program will be able to find it everywhere, okay? Now, there also exist things as local variables. And local variables, they're created within functions. So when we create a variable in a function like this, when we created greet equals nice to meet you, this greet is a local variable. So this variable only exists in this function. So if we try to use it outside of the function, like we did here with hello plus greet, we're going to get thrown an error because our other Python program, or basically our Python program, it searches for where the variable greet is, and it doesn't find it because greet, once again, it's local. So it's basically hidden and then only this function can see it. But if we put greet out here like this, if we put greet out here like this, the variable is now global. This is variables global because now everything can read it. And the thing about it is that it only goes one way with functions, okay? And by that, I mean that the function can see variables outside of it. The function can read greet, it can read another variable outside of it, but it doesn't let anything look inside it. So it's like a one-way window in a car, you know? Like the person in the car can see outside, but the people outside can't see it. It's weird. So that works the same thing with functions. The function can see outside variables as well. If I called this variable something else, if I said this variable's name was hello, and I just went back up here, of course the variable has to be above it so it can actually find it. So if I call this variable, which is actually something different, if I said good like that, and I told it to print out good, even though it doesn't exist in the function, it can still read it because this is global. And when I say global, I really do mean global. It can be read by anything in the program at all. So this is a global variable, and this is not a global variable. But sometimes you might want it to be a global variable, maybe not all the time, but sometimes it might be nice to have this also be a global variable. So how do we do that? Well, to do this, it's actually pretty simple. We simply just use a keyword called global, and we plop it right in front of the variable name. So this transforms it into being global. So now if I do hello plus greet like that, and we run it, oh, sorry, my bad. I have to put something like this. Let's go like that, and let's go up here. Let's go like that. So I'll tell you what's going on right here. Run this. Okay, 1 second. I think I'm doing something incorrectly. Greet is not defined. Okay, 1 second. I think I'm getting my syntax wrong. Make sure. I'm writing something incorrectly. Let me just figure out what I'm writing incorrectly. Okay, that's strange. Give me a second. Let me try this again. I'm just also going to call on the function like that. Let's save it and we'll try running it. Oh, okay. We're printing out the wrong. Oh, yeah, we're printing out good. Okay, that was the error we were getting. So I think this should work now. Save, run. Greet is not defined. I'm not turning into global for some reason. Let me see why that is the case. So I'm going to call on greeting again just to see. Maybe I have to call on it first. Okay, so okay, I know what I was doing wrong now. So I have to actually call on that variable first because if I create the function, or sorry, I have to call on the function first. If I create the function, then I call on it. Also, the way we make a variable global is by first typing in the global keyword, and then we type in greet after that. Or not greet, we type in the variable name after that. And after we've done this now, we can go on to actually create the variable. So we can say greet equals whatever, nice to meet you. And now this is global. So when this is called, if it's called like once before when we actually want to use it, just at any point, it can be called at any point, then our program will be able to come see greet as existing. And honestly, that makes sense because we only defined it up here, but actually here calling it means that this actually has run once now, right? So that means greet was actually created and now it's actually global. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Sorry for that error. So yeah, we've created a global variable now. So greet has now been transformed into being global. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Hopefully that makes sense. So we've covered try and except now. We've covered global and local variables. By the way, local variables, you just transform them to be global. So we've covered global and local variables. We've covered .count and .find. And I'm thinking if we should go on to do the rock, paper, scissors. If we should go look at our rock, paper, scissors code, maybe add on to it. Let's see, was anybody having issues with the thing we did last camp, with that project we did? If you were having issues, then I guess we can go back to it and keep expanding on it. But if not, I think I'm actually going to wrap up the camp today. So maybe in chat, if you could put if you successfully were able to do the rock, paper, scissors thing and you expanded on it yourself, then maybe we won't do the rock, paper, scissors. But in the meanwhile, I guess I'll show you that thing I saw on YouTube that I found pretty interesting. So in a while loop, something like, let's just say loop equals true. I had an issue with log.txt. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe I'll try to look at the program then. I'm just going to open it up here. So this is what we created last camp. So if you had an issue with log.txt, the data did not get logged. So if the data is not getting logged and you're not getting an error, the only thing I can imagine was happening is that you weren't closing the file afterwards. So each time you wrote something, you need to make sure to close it. Okay. So in each if statement, when you were maybe saying user choice equals to computer with log.txt, once you opened it and you wrote whatever the scenario was, if you need to write hi, you need to close it afterwards. And once it closes, then then it gets saved. And if you did that, then I think you should just, it won't live update if you have the file open. You maybe have to close the file and open it back up to actually see the update because it won't live update in front of you either. So that's something else to mind. So closing it is important if it's not getting logged. So hopefully that was just the issue. Let's see, is there anything else we can do to this? Maybe we'll touch on something. Let me see. What should we do? Okay. Yeah, I don't actually have anything properly planned. Let's see if we can solve your issues, see if it works, and then I'll call that the end of the camp. So yeah, honestly, I'll put this in a Google document quickly, and you can look over it and see if you did something differently that might be causing the issue. So once again, I'll just say it again. Make sure you have the file closing each time, and you're closing file, you're doing file.close each time. And it's happening repeatedly for each one just to keep saving the changes. I close them out multiple times and nothing. That's interesting. You close the file multiple times and nothing, and it didn't get logged. Then my only guess, I hope you're opening up the file in append mode, right? Oh, you're opening the file in append mode to add on. And you're also opening up the right file. And the file, by the way, has to be in the same location, in the same like folder basically as the Python script as well. That's strange if you're not even getting an error. You have to make sure you're opening in pen mode. If you're opening it in W mode, which is write mode, it's just going to overwrite it completely. Okay, I don't know how to solve your problem, but good if it worked just now. So make sure that wherever you have the text file, it's saved in the same location as this Python script. Okay, yeah, try that then. Yeah, put it in the same folder. For me, everything's just under desktop, so that also works because it's under the same directory. But yeah. So yeah, just in case if that doesn't work, I'm just gonna create a Doodle Doc quickly. I'll share this with you. I'll put the link in chat, and then I'll wrap that up and call it the end of the camp. So we didn't touch on too much today. We just slightly expanded our knowledge. But yeah, next camp, I'm gonna show you guys like stuff maybe you'd be interested in doing in the future. Because once again, this is just a beginner Python course. So if you're interested in going to other stuff like actually having graphics for your Python program and stuff like that, I think I'm gonna showcase like what you would need to go do to go about doing that. Maybe you're not interested in graphics. Maybe you're interested in stuff like machine learning or just doing like all the cool stuff you see, like making automated bots for programs and stuff. That's what you hear mostly happening with Python nowadays. I'll show you like what path you'll need to take to go do that. And pretty much right now, I can tell you basically right now, just you going to go learn modules in Python. So it's just installing community main modules to do stuff like that. So for example, something called like Selenium. Like if you heard about those like bot applications that like buy out products, like right now it's GPUs that are getting bought out really quickly. They're using like Python bots or bots builds. They're building bots to do stuff like that. So you can learn how to build your own bots with different modules. So that's just me going off topic. Okay, so let me share this document. Copy, paste this here. Rock, paper, scissors. What else I need to do? Share it. Change to anyone with the link. Copy link done. Okay, and I believe this link should work now. Here. Okay, there we go. So I didn't space that out, so you may have to just highlight the thing itself. But yeah, okay, so that's going to be the end of today's camp. I'll put the link one last time since I put it with other stuff as well. There you go. That's just the link by itself. So yeah, that's going to be the end of today's camp. Thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something new. Hope to see you next camp as well. And yeah, thank you. Goodbye.